What, are you kidding me? Rain is good? Today I want to talk about the rhythm of seasons. I want to talk about the invention of electricity. I want to talk about discouraging and encouraging truth all at the same time. I'm going to make a reference to Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds in 1961. I want to encourage you to acknowledge God and embrace the rain. I'm going to show you a quick video called the Snow River video. I want to talk about loss and possibility and stability, and I'm going to make a phone call. Here comes the... Are we breathing it? No? Oh, here it comes. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, man. That's okay. We've all been there. We've all been parents, too, and know what this is like. We're okay. Was the hair that way before it hit the head, or is that like result of the... Oh, we're good. Actually, it's very appropriate for... This is okay. It's all right. Oh. It's going to be better. If she only knew the entire... All right, you know what? Life is made up of seasons. This little one's in a season right now. And this season will get better for her eventually. But just as life, when it comes to like spring and summer and fall and winter, has this rhythm to it that does not stop, and you cannot stop it regardless. I mean, you can't just one spring day say, I love this so much, I'm just going to will it to continue. You can't do it. It's out of your control. There are rhythms of life that just happen. They happen. They keep happening. Just like an apple that eventually, falls from the tree and dies, and then that apple, after a while, there's a seed that comes forth, and that seed, if it's just the right circumstances, can find sort of a natural planting, and then that seed, if it sticks around the ground, just kind of seems like it's doing nothing, and then there's this dormant time of the winter season which it actually needs. And then at just the right time, spring comes and life comes from this seed. And the seed eventually could become a tree which bears fruit, which eventually that apple falls and dies and seeds and on and on. There is a rhythm of life that is beyond our control, but we are in it. There's a rhythm of morning and day that God has created. Before the invention of electricity, there's actually all kinds of studies that people have done that says that when electricity was invented, human beings became less sensitive to this rhythm of seasons. Because of night and day. Forever it was always the the sun wakes you up, and the sun says, "It's morning, earth, it's morning, people, wake up and do life." And then, eventually it would get dark and people would go to bed, and, just there's this rhythm of night and day. And then again, there's been these studies that say that once electricity was invented, it sort of is thrown off of that, us off that rhythm, and it makes us less noticeable, because now we can stay up all night if we want to and still be doing the things that we would do during the day and so forth. So as people in general, we are less notice. We notice it less, this rhythm of spring and summer and fall and winter. We just notice it less because we kind of have worked out ways to live around it as much as we can. And yet you can't stop it. All right, here is now a all-in-one moment. I'm going to give you a discouraging and an encouraging truth, moms. This has to do with rhythm of seasons and life, and that is, moms, if you're going through a great time, you're just in one of those seasons now with your kids that just, everything's just kind of working. I mean, you have the bus schedules figured out, and you have the lunch scheduled down, and you have who picks up who and who drops off who, where, and there's relatively good health. Everything's going good. I just have to be honest with you, there will be other seasons, moms, that you go through, because that's the rhythm of the way life is. And thank God you're in spring right now, maybe some of you. But in just all honesty, there will be some scorching hot summer that'll come, and then there'll be a time where it seems to cool off, and then there'll be moments where it's freezing in your life, and you wonder, as you're laying there like a seed covered up in the ground cold, and you wonder if life will ever happen again. But there's a God outside of it all who's planning spring. And so that's the discouraging thing, but I have also given you the encouraging word too, and that is, if it's really not good now, moms, I mean, if it's just really, you're really in just, I mean, you haven't had sleep in forever, you don't feel appreciated, you feel distant from your child, whatever it might be. If you are in discouraging times, I want you to know that the rhythm of life is, if you hang with it, better times will come. And actually, the Byrds put whoever wrote that song, it comes from the Bible. It comes from Ecclesiastes, which is actually one of the oldest texts in all of Scripture. Because from the very, very beginning, God and the people of God have understood that life does not stay like it is today. People understood that life, instead of it being just sort of like this, and we can stay here, life instead is like this. It's just sort of like a revolving turn. And some days it's like spring, and some days it warms up, and it's pretty good still, but some days it's the air conditioner doesn't work and you're stuck in that car and it's really hot. And then some days it turns cold and it's refreshing, but then there's winter. So it's more like this, and this is where it comes from. On the left is the Bible, on the right is the Byrds. So here's what Ecclesiastes says. To every thing So things. Whatever you're going through, if it's a spring thing, or if it's a winter thing, or if it's a fall thing, or a summer thing, or it doesn't seem to fit anywhere, it's just a thing. To everything, God has a season for it. You see, the good thing is that there's a God who is thinking of the seasons. So if we are like this, God is out here. And God is stable, and God's thinking of the things we're going through and trying to make it work within a season of our life. We hate seasons and we love seasons. It doesn't matter whether we hate them or love them, it's just the way it is. To everything, there is a season. To everything, moms, that you're going through, that you've been through, that you will go through, there is a time and a purpose for it on this earth. Okay, so if you know the song, we have to sort of do it, right? So I will do the left part and you do the right. Okay? To everything, I'm gonna pitch it up high. To everything, there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. And then it goes on. A time, all of that. Well, you know what? Oh, no. Now I've really pitched it high. Da, 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 na, 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 na. Sorry, I brought it up. Now, the people of ancient days, people in Scripture, God is the master object lesson teacher. He uses everything to teach. And so God used the rhythm of the turning. See, this is what I like about what the birds are singing. They understand it. It's not just life is like this, and you can kind of cut out a section in the spring, or maybe a really good time of life in the summer, and you can just make it stick. Instead, life is like this, and it just keeps on turning. Some of you struggle because you're trying to make it stick. Some of you are like over here. Life is over here, and you're trying to be here. And life moves on, but you insist on living somewhere back here, and it doesn't work. And it creates all kinds of confusion and havoc in your mind, and tension in life and in your world. Other times, well, let me just before I go on, sometimes what we do, and I've been guilty of this, is that when a season turned, I didn't realize it. And so instead of willfully saying the season is turned and I'm going to move on, I tried, instead of closing the door, I tried to live there longer than I should have. And eventually that's going to catch up with you. I was forced to end a season 5 years after I should have, because I tried to live where I shouldn't have been. And then sometimes what we do is we find a season and we hate it, and we try to jump into another season before it's time. Instead of letting God kind of move our life, He's up here, remember, we try to force ourselves into a time or a situation that's not to be, which also creates problems. So the people of ancient days understood this whole idea. They were really in tune with this idea of spring and summer and fall and winter. They really were in tune with it, and just the way that they had to live life kind of reminded them. I'm going to show you why. This, by the way, I'm going to show you something from a Jerusalem Insider's Tour Guide book. I took a little statement out of a Jerusalem tour guide book where they're just trying to tell people what it's like if they visit Jerusalem. So here it is. It says, really hard to read. I got a lot of stuff here. But it says this: summer in this area runs from May to September. The one sure thing about this time of year is it will not rain. This is great when you're on tour because if you don't mind a little heat, you can count on sightseeing every day of your trip without rain or storms. Now, the tour book goes on. It says, winter in Jerusalem is a little less predictable than in the summer. The wet season starts in November and goes through April. Because Israel's water supply is so dependent on rainfall, Israelis hope, pray, and beg the heavens for winter rain. Let me explain that here for just a moment. So we have a part of the world which, this scripture is leaning on understanding of this part of the world. The scripture that I'll look at in a moment. It's a part of the world where their water supply really depends on the rain and filling up the rivers and the reservoirs. But it doesn't rain during the summer. The only time that it really rains, if it does, is in the winter. And so they get excited about winter rain. And then in the mountains in this area, it's snow, and so it accumulates as snow and ice. And in the spring, that snow and ice melts. And it comes eventually, like they plan this out and they look for this actual day, these moments when it happens. That snow and ice that was formed in the deadness of the cold winter rains, where everything is dormant and it seems like nothing's going on, that snow and ice, when spring comes, there's a moment where it just releases, and it comes down the mountains and it fills up the rivers again in their water supply. So that's the winter rains. Goes on, it says, now a particularly torrential rain is known as a rain of blessing in Hebrew. So you won't hear anyone grumble about a rainy day here. The first winter I lived in Israel, I lived across the street from a kindergarten. I was so surprised one day in November to hear the roar of a stampede as all the kids ran into the schoolyard outside screaming. In a panic, I rushed to the window to see what had happened. On the sidewalk beneath my window, 45-year-olds were jumping up and down, dancing and shouting with joy, their faces turned up toward the sky. It was raining for the very first time that season. They stayed out there, reveling amid the raindrops, getting thoroughly soaked for a good 20 minutes. The teachers were out there too, just as thrilled as the kids. Very in tune they are in that part of the world with spring, with summer, with fall, with winter. All right, there's a scripture I want to get to now. Here's a scripture that matches up with this. And when I talk about moms, when I talk about life turning, and especially now when I want to talk to the moms that feel like it's the burning part of summer where it was nice at first, but now it's just too hot. And especially I want to talk to you moms that you're going through a struggle right now where you're freezing. And it seems like nothing good is happening. Remember how this goes? You're turning. You're not stuck. You can't be stuck. You'd like to be stuck sometimes, but you can't be stuck. You're turning. And there's a God up here. So it says, let us acknowledge the Lord, because He is the only one in this whole thing of life that's turning constantly, that is stable. Let us acknowledge that there is someone out here that gets it, that can make this make sense. Let's acknowledge the Lord, and then it says, let us press on to acknowledge Him. So I looked up this word press, like where it originally comes from. And I don't know why exactly, but there's like, in the Hebrew mind, there's this thought associated with it, with like a little puppy, a little dog. It says that wants to be near its owner and just runs after its owner the whole time. It's just constantly running after the one that the dog loves and wants to be near, constantly. And so it's this idea, as we're rotating in life, in the seasons of life, there's one who is constant, and we need to be running after Him instead of running in the chaos right here. Now, we have to run in the chaos of here to be able to live life, but somehow we every day, each day, need to acknowledge that there's a God who gets it, and we need to try to check in with God. This is Hosea 6:3, by the way. So it goes on in the second part of 3, and it says, now as surely as the sun rises. Now, how many days in your life has the sun not come up? Like, well, let's see. None, right? Am I pretty right on that? So as surely as the sun rises, in Scripture is saying like all the time, He will appear. As you're in this, you're going crazy, you don't know why. You're sort of trapped in a season you don't like, and you're just trying to hold on for dear life. There is a God who every day, no matter if you're in spring or summer or fall or winter, there's a God who appears every day in your life and sees where you're at and has plans. So surely as the sun rises, He will appear, and He will come to us like the winter rains. You know those winter rains. When it hasn't rained forever. You know, those winter rains when it's so dry, moms, and you just don't know if you can hold on. You don't know how things are going to work out. You don't know how things are going to work out with your child, and there's health issues, and there's things that you cannot control because you are in this. You can't control it. You can't stay there, and you can't go there. You just have to be where you are, remembering that God is still here watching and directing. But there are winter rains that God has and will purposely make happen at the right time. There's winter rains. You might actually think, it's raining. I hate this rain. I'm discouraged by this rain. Like, isn't life bad enough? But it's raining. But it's sometimes the very thing that God is doing. We always want to rush. We always either want to stay or rush ahead. And God is saying, if it's raining, wherever you're at, I'm doing something. Don't rush ahead to the next moment. This moment is divine. So there's winter rains that reminds us that God is planning something. And the beautiful thing here is there's spring rains. It doesn't literally rain in the spring in that area of the world very much. Now, the spring rains is what God had been doing during the winter, during the time when you're kind of that seed under the ground and you're cold and it's dark and it seems like nothing is going on. God is doing something in the winter. And then at just the right time, when spring comes, the rivers fill back up like the spring rains that water the earth. I'm gonna encourage you today, moms, dads, people who live life and you're stuck in a time in life you don't like. I'm going to encourage you today to acknowledge God and embrace the rain. So this is my dear mother on the left and my dad. And right now they're in New Mexico. And they're in one of those seasons. I don't know how they would describe this season right now. They've lived full lives, helping people, loving people. My dad was a minister for almost all of his career, and my mom just the most wonderful person and helping people and caring for people. And there were lots of springs and falls and summers and winters. Right now, this is in a room in my sister's house in New Mexico. That this is where they live life, and not able to get out and go to church, and not able to do much of anything but get out and go to the doctor, and so I suppose this is winter, but there are, even within winters, there are moments of all the seasons. Even God gives you refreshing days even in winter. And so I think there's some spring days and some falls. So what I'd like to do is I want to call my mother. This is my sister that will answer in New Mexico.
Hello.
Hello, Jackie. That almost sounded like a recording. Is this really you?
Oh, did it?
Yes, it was like hello. Anyway, it sounded like how you pause for a second, like they'll pause and then they'll go into this recorded thing for you to buy insurance.
Yeah.
You sounded like that.
Do you want me to say beep?
What?
Beep.
Beep. Yes. Jackie, you are live, and you knew this isn't a surprise. You were live with my congregation here in Michigan, and so my mother does not know about this moment.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And so would you put her on the phone for me?
I will.
Okay.
Hold on just now. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Hold on a second.
Right.
Here, Mom. Telephone call. Turn this up. Hey, Tom.
Hey, how did you know it was me?
Because Jack's sitting here at our breakfast table eating, and I'm shaving your dad. And when she said, Tom.
Then that gave it away. That was me, right? Okay. Hey, happy Mother's Day.
Well, thank you, honey. You're just the best son ever.
Yeah, and I do need to let you know that we are. This is a live phone call, and so there's yeah, 156 others listening right now. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So okay. Um, anyway, we've been talking about seasons in life and the things that we all go through as parents and moms, and you've went through many seasons in your life, and then you've also helped me through many seasons, and I've been talking about the fact that God is the stable one that we lean on and we trust on, but I'd also like to say that moms have this ability to, at least from the child's perspective, to sort of be a stabilizing force and remind that child that there's hope and that somehow, regardless of the season they're going through, they're going to make it. And I wanted you to just go back with me many years to when my son Matthew was born 6 weeks early, and we lived. Denise and I lived in Maryland, and we were away from you guys. We were
Right.
away from all of our family. We were just there in a state we'd never been in before, and so we had no one really that much around, and yet,
I remember.
and you and Dad were a real stabilizing force. Can you? Um, I don't know, what were your thoughts? That has to be hard for you as a mom when your kids are away and we're having our first baby.
Well, we were in Ohio, and you were in Maryland, and I never traveled alone, but that was the first time that I said I've got to go, and so I packed a suitcase, and your dad took me to the airport, and I flew by myself. That sounds strange when people do that all the
Well,
time,
but had you not flown in an airplane, you're saying, or you just didn't do it much?
yes,
But not alone. I
we
mean,
were always together when we traveled, and so. But I can remember you met me at the airport, and you just gave me the biggest bear hug, like, oh, finally I've got somebody to hang on to.
mm-hmm.
I just remember so vividly, and so we went and went to the hospital and saw a little mat, and I just remember you and I just doing so much together
Mm-hmm.
at that.
Yeah,
And
I wanted to go ahead.
well, it was just such a good time to just have to be together.
Right. And I just wanted to bring out that particular story, and there's been others. There was that 17-month period, that I went through between my last church and this church. You guys were there, and that's the thing. Seasons never stop, and you never stop being a mom, no matter how old the child is. But I just wanted to thank you for. I remember that moment in the airport when I just hugged you, and it's just you and me, and I just hugged you and thanked you for being that stabilizing force in my life as a mom. And so thank you for that, and thank you, to Dad, who's always been that as well. But
Well, you're just we've just been so supportive with what you're doing, and the fact that other people love you, and it just makes us feel so good to know that you're where you are right now, and you've expressed so many times how much you love the people there, and that's just so good to know that you're serving God. We just had our devotions. And Jackie came in here, and we just had prayer, and we prayed for you this morning. And it's just so good to be able to pray and know that God's taking care of you.
Well, thank you.
What's going on?
Thank you, Mom, and thank you for sharing this moment with us. And I know it means a lot to everyone here. And thank you for being such a good mom. And happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
They're kind of all yelling at you here, so
All right.
we're gonna do on 3. Thank you, Mom. So see if you can hear this. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Mom. Did you hear that?
That is so neat. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Love you, and I love you.
Love you too.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye. So, seasons. Not sure what season you're in right now. But hang in there. Hang in there. It's gonna keep. God's doing something. God's up here.